The great throne room of the Draelor Empire was cold and silent. Tall columns of shining metal rose to the high ceiling, and the walls were covered with banners that told stories of long battles and mighty victories. At the center sat the alien king, a tall man with sharp eyes and silver hair that flowed like a river. Before him stood his daughter, Lyra. She was unlike the warriors who filled the stories in the banners. She was small and delicate, with soft green skin and wide, gentle eyes. Many in the court whispered behind her back. They called her weak. They said she would never lead the empire. The king looked at her with a heavy heart. His empire faced enemies on all sides, and his people wanted strength. They wanted a ruler who could protect them. But Lyra, his daughter, seemed unable to meet their expectations. The council had gathered to decide what to do. They urged the king to send her away or to find another way to save the empire. The king's face was hard, but he knew what he must do. "Bring Commander Bren," he said quietly. Moments later, a human stepped into the throne room. Bren was tall and strong, with calm eyes that held no fear. Humans were new to the galaxy, but they were known for their courage and skill. The king looked at Bren. "I offer you my daughter. Take her, train her, make her strong. This is my gift to you and to your people." A silence fell. Some of the council members gasped. Others whispered angrily. Lyra looked at Bren, unsure. She did not understand why she was being given away like a possession. Bren stepped forward, bowing his head respectfully. "I accept this gift not as a burden, but as a chance to build something new." The king nodded, a small flicker of hope in his eyes. Lyra was taken from the throne room and placed aboard a human ship. The hum of the engines was loud and steady. She stood by the window, watching her home fade into the distance. She felt alone and afraid. Days passed as the ship traveled through the stars. Bren spent time with her quietly, learning about her hopes and fears. "You are not weak," he told her one evening. "You just have not found your strength yet." Lyra did not know how to believe him. She had spent her whole life being told she was weak. When the ship landed on a distant human colony, Lyra saw a new world filled with open skies and busy people. She felt out of place. Bren introduced her to the community. Some humans looked at her with curiosity, others with doubt. One day, Bren took Lyra to the training grounds. Soldiers ran and fought, learning to work together. Bren gave her a simple task: to carry supplies across the field. She struggled with the weight but did not give up. Mila, a human soldier with a kind smile, noticed her. "Let me help you," Mila said. She showed Lyra how to carry the load better. Lyra smiled, grateful for the help. Over the following days, Lyra trained with Mila. She learned small moves, how to stand steady, how to breathe through pain. At night, Bren and Lyra would talk. "Your strength is not just in your body," Bren said. "It is in your heart and your mind." Lyra listened. Slowly, a small spark of hope grew inside her. One evening, a call came. A small village near the colony was under attack by raiders. Bren and his team rushed to help. Lyra wanted to go with them, but Bren said she should stay safe. But Lyra could not stay. She slipped out and followed from a distance. She saw the battle, flashes of light, the clash of weapons, the cries of fear. She felt her heart pounding. Suddenly, a small child ran into danger. Without thinking, Lyra ran to save the child, pulling him away just as a weapon fired nearby. The child looked at her with wide eyes. "Thank you." Bren found her afterwards, surprised but proud. "You saved a life tonight," he said. "That is the first step of a warrior." Lyra looked at the stars above. Maybe she could be more than what others believed. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time she was ready to try. Lyra woke early the next morning. The sun was just rising over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. She stood outside her small room in the human colony and watched the village come to life. People moved quickly, preparing for the day ahead. The sound of children's laughter mixed with the low hum of machines and the calls of traders selling their goods. Lyra took a deep breath. The night before, she had done something she never thought possible. She had saved a child. It was a small act, but it gave her hope. Maybe she was not as weak as she had always believed. She made her way to the training grounds where Mila waited. Mila was already practicing her moves, her body strong and sure. She looked up when Lyra arrived and smiled. "Ready to start?" Mila asked. Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of nerves and determination. They began with simple exercises, running, jumping, and basic fighting moves. Mila was patient, showing Lyra how to move with grace and power. Lyra stumbled at first, her body stiff and untrained. But Mila encouraged her, saying, "Every warrior starts somewhere." As the days passed, Lyra grew stronger. She practiced every morning and evening, pushing herself harder than she ever had before. She learned to focus her mind and control her breathing. The pain of failure still came, but she refused to give up. Bren watched her progress from a distance. He knew this journey would not be easy for her, but he also saw something special in Lyra, something that others had missed. One afternoon, Bren called Lyra to his quarters. The room was simple, with maps and reports spread across a large table. "We have a problem," Bren said. "Raiders have been attacking supply routes near the colony. If we do not stop them, the village will suffer." Lyra listened carefully. This was her chance to prove herself. Bren continued, "I want you to join the patrol. You will not be alone. Mila and I will be there." Lyra's heart raced. The thought of battle was frightening, but she also felt a growing fire inside her. She nodded. The next day, the patrol set out in small ships toward the outer borders of the colony. The sky was clear and the stars shone brightly. Lyra sat beside Mila, gripping her weapon tightly. She looked at the vast space before them, feeling small but ready. When they arrived, the patrol found signs of destruction, burned fields and broken machinery. The raiders had been here recently. Bren ordered the team to split up and search for the raiders' camp. Lyra moved quietly through the rough terrain, her senses alert. She could feel the tension in the air, the sense of danger lurking nearby. Suddenly, a shout came from Mila. "They found us!" Lyra turned to see a group of raiders rushing toward them, weapons raised and faces twisted with anger. The patrol quickly formed a line, ready to defend themselves. Lyra's heart pounded. This was real. The fight she had trained for. The battle was fierce but brief. Bren and Mila fought skillfully, and Lyra did her best to keep up. She raised her weapon and aimed, but her hands shook. A raider lunged toward her, and Lyra stumbled backward, almost falling. Mila caught her arm and steadied her. "Focus, Lyra," Mila whispered. "You can do this." Lyra took a deep breath and steadied her aim. She fired a warning shot that made the raiders hesitate. Then Bren charged forward, shouting commands. The raiders retreated, disappearing into the shadows. The patrol gathered together, counting their numbers. No one was hurt, but the raid was a warning. Bren looked at Lyra with a small smile. "You held your ground today. That is progress." Lyra nodded, feeling a mix of relief and pride. Back at the colony, the villagers welcomed the patrol with gratitude. They knew the fight against the raiders was far from over. That night, as Lyra sat by the fire, Bren approached her. "You saved a child last week," he said quietly. "Tonight you held your own in battle. The next step is to learn not just to fight, but to lead." Lyra looked at him, surprised. "Leadership is about more than strength," Bren continued. "It is about making decisions, inspiring others, and standing firm when the world feels like it is falling apart." Lyra thought about her life in the Drylor Empire, about the whispers and doubts. She realized that maybe her true weakness had been her fear of trying. "Teach me," she said simply. Bren smiled. "We will start tomorrow." The following weeks were filled with new lessons. Bren and Mila taught Lyra about strategy and tactics. They showed her how to read the battlefield and understand the strengths of her team. Lyra studied hard. She asked questions and learned quickly. Slowly, the fear inside her began to fade, replaced by confidence. One day, Bren brought a small group of soldiers to the training grounds. "Today we will practice teamwork," he said. Lyra worked closely with the others, learning to trust them and to give orders. It was not easy. Some soldiers doubted her because of her alien heritage. Others questioned her ability. But Lyra did not back down. She spoke with calm and certainty, showing she was more than just a weak daughter. At night, she wrote letters to her father, the alien king. She told him about her training and the battles. She did not ask for his approval, but she hoped he would understand. Months passed. Lyra's body grew stronger, her mind sharper. She began to see herself not as the weak princess, but as a warrior in her own right. One evening, as she practiced sword moves under the stars, Bren approached her. "You have come far," he said, "but the greatest challenge is yet to come." Lyra looked up, curious and ready. "There is a trial," Bren explained. A test of strength and leadership. It will push you to your limits. Lyra felt a thrill of excitement and fear. I am ready, she said. Bren nodded, a proud smile on his face. Good, because the world is watching, and soon you will show them who you truly are. Lyra stood tall, feeling the weight of her past, but also the promise of her future. She was no longer a gift of shame. She was becoming a spark in the dust, ready to ignite a new path for herself and her people. The day of the trial arrived with the sun rising over the human colony. Lyra stood at the edge of the training grounds, feeling the cool morning breeze on her skin. Around her, soldiers and instructors prepared for the challenge ahead. Some were humans, others came from many alien worlds, all watching with quiet interest. Lyra's heart beat fast. The trial was designed to test everything she had learned, the strength of her body, the sharpness of her mind, and the courage inside her. It was not just about fighting. It was about showing leadership and resolve. Bren came beside her, his face calm and steady. Remember, he said, this is more than a test. It is a chance to prove to yourself what you are capable of. Lyra nodded. She clenched her fists and took a deep breath. She was ready. The trial began with a series of physical challenges. Lyra ran through obstacle courses, climbed walls, and leapt over pits of hot sand. Her muscles burned, but she pushed forward, driven by determination. Next came combat training. Lyra faced skilled opponents in one-on-one duels. At first, she struggled. Her movements were slow and unsure, but with each match, she learned. She listened to her opponent's moves and responded with quick thinking. Mila watched from the sidelines, cheering quietly. You can do this, Lyra, she said. Lyra's last duel was against a veteran soldier named Talon. He was tall and strong with years of experience. The crowd gathered to watch. The duel began. Talon moved quickly, striking with power and precision. Lyra dodged and blocked, searching for an opening. She remembered Bren's words about using the mind, not just the body. When Talon made a small mistake, Lyra seized the moment. She stepped forward, disarmed him, and won the duel. The crowd applauded. Lyra felt a smile spread across her face. For the first time, she believed she could be a warrior, but the trial was not over. Next came the test of leadership. Lyra was given a small group of soldiers. Their task was to capture a simulated enemy base and hold it against counterattacks. Lyra had to plan and lead the mission. She gathered her team and spoke clearly. We will work together. Stay alert and trust each other. Some soldiers looked doubtful, but Lyra kept her confidence. The mission began. Lyra guided her team through the rough terrain, avoiding traps and ambushes. She gave orders calmly and adjusted plans when things changed. At one point, an enemy attack surprised them. Lyra ordered her team to hold their ground and used quick thinking to outmaneuver the attackers. The mission ended successfully. The instructors nodded in approval. After the trial, Bren approached Lyra. You have changed, he said. You are not the girl who arrived here months ago. Lyra smiled. I am still learning, but I feel stronger. Bren looked at her with respect. Strength is not just about muscles. It is about heart and mind. You have both. That evening, Lyra sat by the campfire with Mila and Bren. The stars shone brightly overhead. Mila said, You have earned the respect of many here, but the road ahead will be harder. Lyra looked up at the sky. She thought about her father, the alien king, and the court that had called her weak. I want to show them that I am not weak, she said softly. Bren nodded. You will. But first, you must face your past to build your future. Lyra knew the time was coming when she would have to confront her family and the empire that had turned its back on her. But for now, she was a warrior in training, a spark growing brighter with each day. The morning air was cool and fresh as Lyra stood on the deck of the human ship, gazing out at the stars that stretched endlessly into space. The colony behind her was quiet, but her mind was busy with thoughts of the future. Bren had just delivered news that made her heart beat faster. Soon she would return to her homeworld, the Draelor Empire. The time had come to face the past. For months, Lyra had trained hard. She had grown stronger and braver. She had learned to lead, to fight, and to trust herself. But the thought of returning to the palace where she was once seen as weak filled her with unease. Bren noticed the change in her. You are ready, he said firmly. But remember, strength comes from within. You are not the girl they once knew. Lyra nodded. She hoped he was right. The ship moved through the dark space, passing stars and planets. Lyra spent many hours in the training room, preparing her body and mind for what awaited her. Mila continued to support her, always ready with advice and encouragement. One evening, as the ship approached the orbit of Draelor, Lyra looked out at the blue-green planet. Memories flooded her mind, her childhood in the palace gardens, the whispered voices of courtiers and the cold eyes of the council. Her thoughts were interrupted by Bren's voice. "We will land near the capital city. The people need to see you not as a weak princess but as a leader." Lyra took a deep breath. "I am ready." The ship landed smoothly on the great landing platform near the palace. Guards in shining armor watched as Lyra and Bren stepped onto the soil of her homeworld. The palace rose ahead like a mountain of silver and glass. It was beautiful and cold, just like the place she remembered. As they entered the great hall, Lyra felt the eyes of the court upon her. Whispers filled the air. Some looked surprised. Others were clearly displeased. Her father, the alien king, sat on his throne, his expression unreadable. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady. "You have returned." Lyra bowed respectfully. "Yes, father. I have returned to serve our empire." The council members exchanged looks. One of them, a stern woman named Vela, stepped forward. "Your absence has caused concern," Vela said sharply. "The empire faces dangers. What proof do you bring that you are fit to lead?" Lyra stood tall. "I have trained with the humans and learned from their ways. I have fought alongside soldiers and led missions. I am no longer the weak daughter you once knew." The room grew silent. The king's eyes softened slightly. "Show us, then." Over the next days, Lyra demonstrated her new skills. She led soldiers through drills, solved difficult problems, and spoke with confidence before the council. Some began to see her in a new light. Others remained doubtful. One afternoon, Lyra was invited to the council chamber for a private meeting with her father. He looked at her with a mixture of pride and regret. "I sent you away because I feared you could not protect the empire. But now I see that I was wrong." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you, father." "I only wish to serve," the king nodded. "There is much to do. Enemies gather beyond our borders. We must be ready," Lyra agreed. "I will prepare the army. Together we will protect Draelor." Word spread quickly throughout the empire about Lyra's return and her new strength. People whispered of the princess who had become a warrior, but not all were pleased. Vela and others in the council secretly plotted to undermine Lyra. They saw her as a threat to their power. One night, Lyra received a message from an unknown source. It warned her of betrayal and danger within the palace. She showed the message to Bren and Mila. "We must be careful," Bren said. "Enemies hide in the shadows," Lyra agreed. She knew the path ahead would not be easy. Determined to protect her family and her people, Lyra began to build alliances within the court. She met with commanders, advisors, and even some council members who were willing to listen. Slowly, she gathered a small group of loyal supporters. One day, during a council meeting, Vela openly challenged Lyra's authority. "You are not ready to lead," Vela declared. "You are a mistake brought back from the humans." "We will not follow you," Lyra stood calmly. "I am not here to be a figurehead. I am here to fight for the empire. If you doubt me, then I challenge you to prove your loyalty through action." The room fell silent. The king raised his hand. "Enough. We will settle this by showing strength, not words." A plan was made to send a joint force led by Lyra to confront a growing threat on a nearby planet. Lyra prepared for the mission with her team. Bren and Mila stood by her side. Before leaving, the king placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lead with courage, my daughter," Lyra nodded. She felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the ship took off toward the battle, Lyra looked back at the palace. The place of her past, but now the foundation of her future. She was no longer the weak princess. She was a warrior ready to fight for her people and prove that even the smallest spark could ignite the brightest flame. The starship cut through the blackness of space, moving swiftly toward the planet called Zelra. It was a world on the edge of the Draelor Empire, filled with mountains and deep forests. The reports had warned that Zelra was under threat from a group of raiders who had been attacking villages and supply lines. Now Lyra and her team were heading there to stop the danger and protect the people. Inside the ship, the mood was tense but hopeful. Lyra stood near the window, watching the stars slide past. Her thoughts were filled with the mission ahead. She knew this was more than just a fight. It was a chance to prove to her people and herself that she could lead in times of crisis. Bren approached, his calm presence steadying her nerves. "We will need to move carefully," he said. "The raiders are skilled and desperate. Mila checked the weapons and supplies. But they are no match for us if we work together." Lyra nodded. "We fight not just for victory, but for the safety of those who cannot defend themselves." As the ship entered the atmosphere of Zelra, the landscape came into view. Jagged mountains stretched across the horizon, and thick forests covered much of the land. The villages were small and scattered, their people simple but strong. The team landed near a village that had been attacked recently. Smoke still rose from some of the burned huts and the air smelled of ash. Villagers gathered around the newcomers, their faces filled with fear and hope. An elder stepped forward and spoke in a quiet voice. "Thank you for coming. The raiders have taken many of our people. We do not know how much longer we can hold." Lyra looked at the villagers, feeling their pain and courage. "We will do everything we can to stop the raiders and bring peace." That night, Lyra and her team planned their attack. They studied maps of the area and learned what they could about the raiders' movements. Bren said, "The raiders use the mountains for cover. They strike quickly and disappear." Mila added, "We must be ready for surprises." Lyra considered the information. "We will divide into 2 groups. One will draw their attention. The other will strike from behind." The plan was risky, but it gave them the best chance. The next morning, the 2 groups moved out under Lyra's command. The forests were dense and quiet, the perfect place for an ambush. As they advanced, Lyra felt her senses sharpen. Every sound, every movement was important. Suddenly, the first group made contact with the raiders. The sounds of battle echoed through the trees, shouts, clashes of weapons, and the roar of energy blasts. Lyra led the second group around the mountains, moving quickly and silently. They reached the raiders' camp hidden in a valley. Lyra signaled to her team to prepare for the attack. The camp was small but well guarded. With a fierce yell, Lyra and her soldiers charged. The raiders were caught by surprise. The battle was intense. Lyra fought with the skill and strength she had gained over months of training. She moved like a shadow, striking swiftly and with purpose. The raiders fought back fiercely. Their leader, a tall figure known as Grak, appeared in the fight. He was strong and dangerous, wielding a heavy weapon that sparked with energy. Lyra met Grak's challenge without fear. They clashed in a battle that shook the ground beneath them. Blows were exchanged, but Lyra used her speed and cleverness to gain the upper hand. With a final strike, she disarmed Grak and forced him to surrender. The remaining raiders fled, their will broken. The villagers came to the camp, cheering and thanking the soldiers. Lyra felt a deep satisfaction. This victory was not just hers, but belonged to everyone who had stood and fought together. That night, as the camp settled, Bren approached Lyra. "You led well today. The people will remember this." Lyra looked at the stars above, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the fire of hope. "We have more to do," she said softly. "The Empire needs peace, but it also needs strength." Mila smiled. "And you have both now." The journey back to the capital was filled with news of the victory. Lyra's name spread across the Empire as a symbol of courage and change. But even as she returned to honor and respect, Lyra knew the path ahead was still full of challenges. Enemies inside and outside the palace still watched and waited. Yet, with each step, Lyra grew stronger, no longer the weak daughter, but a fierce warrior and leader ready to protect her people. The victory on Zelra brought hope to the Draelor Empire. Stories of Lyra's bravery and leadership traveled fast, inspiring many across the kingdom. Yet in the shadows of the palace, not all were pleased. Inside the grand halls of the palace, whispers of doubt and suspicion wove through the corridors. Vela, the stern councilwoman who had openly challenged Lyra before, now gathered her followers. They feared the princess's rise would shift power away from them. Vela met with several council members in a quiet chamber. "We cannot allow this human-trained girl to control the Empire," she said, her voice low but firm. "She does not understand our ways or our people." One advisor, a thin man named Dren, nodded. "The king may support her now, but if she grows stronger, she could become a threat to us all." Vela smiled coldly. "Then we must act before that happens. It is time to weave a plan to bring her down." Far from the plotting, Lyra continued her training and work with the army. Her days were filled with lessons in strategy, diplomacy, and combat. She spent hours with Bren and Mila, learning not only to fight but to think like a leader. Her strength had grown, but she knew power could also bring danger. One morning, as Lyra practiced with a training spear, a messenger arrived with an urgent note from the king. Lyra unfolded the letter. It spoke of an approaching delegation from a neighboring empire. They wished to discuss peace, but the king warned that some might have hidden motives. Lyra understood the risks. The diplomatic meeting could become a battlefield of words and power. She prepared carefully. Bren helped her study the customs and languages of the visitors while Mila planned security measures. When the delegation arrived, the palace was alive with activity. The visitors were impressive, dressed in elegant robes and carrying symbols of their empire. Lyra met with their leader, a tall woman named Sarah. They spoke formally but with sharp eyes watching every word. During the discussions, Lyra sensed a subtle tension beneath the polite conversation. The visitors praised the Draelor Empire but also made quiet demands. Lyra stood firm. Peace must be based on respect and equality, she said. Our people will not be ruled by fear or force. Sarah's smile did not reach her eyes. We only seek cooperation, but the council watched carefully. Some whispered that the delegation's real goal was to weaken Draelor through deception. That night, Lyra received a secret message. It warned that some members of her own court planned to betray her during the talks. She showed the message to Bren and Mila. We must be careful, she said. The danger is closer than we thought. Together they worked to uncover the truth. Mila's sharp mind discovered signs of secret meetings among the council members. One night, Bren and Lyra followed the suspicious group to a hidden chamber beneath the palace. There, they overheard Vela and her followers speaking in low voices. We will make our move during the final meeting, Vela said. The empire will be ours. Lyra's heart pounded. The betrayal was real. They retreated silently, planning how to stop the conspiracy without causing panic. The day of the final meeting arrived. The great hall was filled with dignitaries and council members. As the talks began, Lyra watched carefully. When Vela made a sudden demand to change the terms of the treaty, Lyra rose to speak. This empire stands on unity, Lyra said firmly. Those who seek to divide us betray everything we fight for. Her words struck the room. Some council members looked ashamed, others angry. The king raised his voice. Enough, we will not allow treachery in our court. Vela's plan was exposed. She and her followers were arrested for plotting against the throne. The hall fell silent. Lyra felt a mix of relief and sadness. The palace was still full of shadows, but now there was light. After the meeting, the king placed his hand on Lyra's shoulder. You have shown wisdom and courage. You are truly ready to lead. Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of the future but also its hope. With the threat inside the palace removed, Lyra turned her thoughts to the dangers beyond the empire's borders. The peace talks were just one battle in a larger war. She looked to Bren and Mila. Together, they would face whatever came next. The empire's story was still being written, and Lyra was determined to make it one of strength, justice, and hope. The Draelor Empire seemed calm on the surface. Peace talks had ended, the traitors were removed, and the people looked toward a brighter future. But Lyra knew better. A storm was gathering beyond the borders. She could feel it in the air, in the tension between distant stars. Her training had prepared her for battles with swords and tactics. But this coming challenge was different. It was a test of her mind, her heart, and her will. One morning, as she stood on the balcony overlooking the capital, Bren came with urgent news. Scouts report a large fleet moving toward our system. They carry weapons we have never seen. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Who are they? Bren shook his head. Unknown. But their intent is clear. They come to fight. Lyra clenched her fists. Then we must prepare. We cannot let fear control us. She called a meeting of her trusted advisors. Soldiers, scientists, and diplomats gathered to hear her plan. We will strengthen our defenses, Lyra said, but we must also seek allies. Alone we will fall. Mila stood beside her. I have sent messages to neighboring worlds. Some are willing to help. The council debated the risks and strategies. Lyra listened, weighing every word. Days passed as the Empire worked to prepare. Soldiers trained harder, ships were repaired, and plans were drawn. At night, Lyra studied the stars, wondering about the strangers coming closer. One evening, a message arrived from the mysterious fleet. It was a challenge, a demand for surrender or war. Lyra's heart burned with defiance. "We will not bow to threats." She ordered the Empire's fleet to ready for battle, but insisted on seeking one last chance for peace. A small ship was sent to meet the fleet in neutral space. Lyra accompanied Bran and Mila on the mission. As they approached, the enemy ship came into view. It was massive, dark, and unlike anything Lyra had seen before. The leader of the fleet, a figure named Zar, communicated through a hologram. His voice was cold and firm. "You must surrender your empire," Zar said. "Join us or be destroyed." Lyra stood tall. "We will never surrender. Our people value freedom and honor." Zar's eyes glowed with anger. "Then prepare for war." The meeting ended, and the small ship returned quickly. Back on Draelor, Lyra called her people to rally. "We face a great threat, but together we are stronger than any enemy. We will fight for our home, for our future." The Empire's ships moved into battle formation. The skies darkened with warships. The battle began with a thunderous clash. Energy beams and missiles lit up space as fleets fought fiercely. Lyra watched from the command ship, directing her forces with calm and sharp focus. Bren and Mila worked beside her, coordinating attacks and defenses. The enemy was powerful, but Lyra's fleet was clever. They used speed and strategy to avoid destruction. At one moment, Lyra led a daring strike against the enemy's command ship. The battle was close and the risk was high. Her ship dodged blasts and returned fire. Finally, with a precise attack, they damaged the enemy's main weapon. Zar's fleet faltered, but the fight was far from over. Zar sent a final warning. "This is only the beginning. We will return." The enemy fleet retreated into the darkness. The Empire's people cheered their victory. Lyra smiled, but inside she knew the true battle was still ahead. She gathered her commanders. "We must rebuild and prepare. Zar will come again." Mila nodded. "We have learned much today." Bren placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "You have led us well. The Empire stands strong because of you." Lyra looked at the stars once more, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the fire of hope. The storm had come, and she had met it head-on. But the future was still uncertain. With courage and unity, she vowed to protect her people and build a brighter tomorrow. The skies over the Draelor Empire were calm once more, but the memory of the recent battle lingered like a shadow. Lyra stood at the edge of the capital's highest tower, looking out across the vast lands of her homeworld. The stars above sparkled with quiet light, promising hope and peace. Her journey had been long and difficult. From a weak, unsure girl to a fierce warrior and leader, Lyra had grown beyond what even she had imagined possible. The weight of her people's future rested on her shoulders, but she no longer carried it alone. Bren and Mila stood nearby, their faces tired but proud. The three of them had become more than just allies. They were a family. The king had officially named Lyra the protector of the Draelor Empire. His voice had been filled with pride and hope as he spoke before the gathered crowd. "You have shown us what it means to be strong, not just in body, but in heart and spirit," the king said. "Our empire will thrive under your guidance." Lyra had accepted the honor humbly. "I will serve the empire with all my strength." But with the title came new challenges. The threat of Zar and his fleet still hung over the horizon. The scars of the recent battle reminded everyone that peace was fragile. Lyra and her council worked day and night to rebuild the defenses and strengthen alliances. Diplomats from neighboring worlds arrived, offering support and friendship. Together, they formed a united front to protect their corner of the galaxy. One afternoon, Lyra received a message from Zar. It was unexpected, a request to meet, to talk peace. She studied the message carefully. Was this a trap or a true offer? After discussing with Bren and Mila, Lyra decided to accept. "We must always seek peace, even with those who have been our enemies." The meeting took place on a neutral space station orbiting a distant star. Lyra, Bren, and Mila traveled with a small team, cautious but hopeful. Zar appeared as a hologram once more. His expression was serious. "I do not wish to continue this war," Zar said. "Our empires have suffered enough." Lyra nodded. "Neither do we. But peace must be built on trust." The conversation was long and difficult, Both sides shared their fears and hopes. Slowly, a new understanding began to form. By the end of the meeting, they agreed to a ceasefire and promised to work toward lasting peace. When Lyra returned home, the people celebrated not just the end of war, but the beginning of a new era. The Empire's strength had been tested and proven. But more importantly, Lyra had shown that courage, wisdom, and compassion could change the course of history. She stood once more on the balcony of the palace, feeling the cool breeze and looking at the stars. The future was bright, and the Empire was ready. Lyra smiled, knowing that her journey had only just begun. With her friends by her side and her people behind her, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, for she was no longer the weak daughter of the alien king. She was the fierce warrior, the protector of the Draelor Empire, and she would lead her people to a new dawn.